Human Digestive System by CSEC. So this is a quick review. Food processing occurs in four stages: ingestion, digestion, absorption, elimination. This is just a quick review of everything that you should know before going into this or some other stuff besides human digestion. So there are three dietary categories: carnivores who only eat other animals, herbivores who eat plants and algae, and omnivores which eat both plants and animals. There are four feeding mechanisms. These are just how organisms take up their food: fluid feeders, such as mosquitoes, who drink blood; filter feeders, such as small aquatic animals that collect food particles, such as the phylum of Porifera, which are basically just sponges; substrate feeders, which live on their food sources, like the butterfly, whatever. I forget which kind of butterfly. I'm not a butterfly person. That sets its larvae on leaves, and they live in the leaf and eat their way out and become super fat and live, hopefully. Or if it's a milkweed, they'll drown in the milk sometimes. And bulk feeders, such as us, that can feed on large pieces of food, like little chunks of puppy biscuits or kibble. So cute. Anyways, Phyllonaderia and Platyhelminthes, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, have gastrovascular cavities, which function as both the mouth and the anus. Pretty much every other phyla contains alimentary canals, which is basically digestive tract. So a food vacuole is used for intracellular digestion by phagocytosis. This is more for those single-celled kind of organisms that have to, kind of bulk feed on the molecular or very small nano level. Other animals, such as birds, have crops and gizzards. A crop is kind of like a thing along their throat, a pouch that contains rocks that can ground up food, and gizzards are a muscular stomach which, physically grinds the food. It's kind of like a two-level mechanical digestion. Let's go on to the next slide. This is an overview of what I'll be talking about. Uh, Also note that I meant to include nutrients and minerals at the end and talk a little bit about some risks and stuff like that. Maybe some more medical side of the digestive system at the end. But this is basically the digestion lists that my teacher gave me, our entire class actually, to study and get ready for the test. Uh, you have to know what all these terms are in the order that they are in. Alright, so let's start with the mouth, also called the oral cavity. The mouth utilizes, as well as your entire alimentary canal, utilizes a process called peristalsis, which is the alternating waves of contraction and relaxation of smooth muscles through the alimentary canal. This, goes on through the entire alimentary canal. I'm repeating myself. In the mouth, there are three salivary glands, which each are stimulated by the presence of food in the mouth. The teeth then smash up and cut the food. We have three different types of teeth. We have two blade-like incisors, two premolars, and three molars. So that's on each side of our mouth. So in total, we have four blade-like incisors, four premolars, and six molars for our entire mouth. Saliva has three main functions. It allows food to go down through the esophagus because it is itself a slippery substance. Saliva also kills bacteria that is in the food, and it also, number three, digests the food with amylase enzyme, and you should know this. Amylase also digests starch. The tongue muscle also helps shape the food into a ball or bolus, which makes it easier to go down the esophagus. Your esophagus is with your digestive system, your trachea is with your respiratory system. More commonly known as the throat, the pharynx either opens up to the trachea or the esophagus. Most of the time, the pharynx will be open to the trachea, and the esophageal sphincter is closed. The esophageal sphincter is a bit of muscle mass that can either, contract or relax. Allows food to either, it can allow food to pass down to your stomach, or it can say, nope, anything coming in should instead go to the trachea and do your respiratory system, which allows you to breathe in more air. And we need to talk about some of the tissues involved here. The esophagus is a muscle. It conveys food from the pharynx to the stomach. Consists of tough elastic connective tissue to accommodate a bolus, longitudinal smooth muscle tissue for peristalsis, and a stratified epithelial lining for replacing cells. I believe the epithelial lining is on the outside. Then comes the elastic tissue, and then the longitudinal smooth tissue. I think. Right. So the cardiac sphincter it opens or closes, letting stuff into the stomach, and the pyloric sphincter opens or closes as it allows stuff to come out of the stomach. So when we say we have heartburn, that is just more accurately esophagus burn. Esophagus burn is when the cardiac sphincter opens, allowing stomach acid to enter into our esophagus and burn some of that epithelial lining, which hurts a lot. And I might be asking, looking at this picture, how would, stomach acid, seemingly at the bottom of the stomach, get up here? Well, keep in mind peristalsis. It's kind of disgusting, but your stomach, yeah, it's weird how this thing contracts. Its entire thing, the muscles inside go in and out of each other all the time, and trust me, it mixes and mashes everything together, and that's how some of that acid, it just gets up into your esophagus. So your stomach digests chemically by means of gastric juice. Gastric juice is produced by gastric glands. Gastric juice has a pH of 2 and can kill most bacteria contained in the food. Gastric juice may also be used in the denaturing of proteins, hence why your stomach mainly digests proteins. Doesn't mainly digest carbs, it mainly digests proteins. So, within the stomach wall, there are gastric glands, which contain three different types of cells. We have mucose cells, which secrete mucus or a mucose layer for lubrication of the cells and the lining of the stomach, which helps mix and mash the food a little bit more evenly, and also makes it so that your stomach wall is protected from the high acidity of your stomach. The second type of cell, or at least in this list, is the parietal cells, which secrete hydrogen and chloride ions, which combine in the lumen cavity of the stomach to form hydrochloric acid. Now, why does it not just secrete hydrochloric acid? Because that would pretty much kill the cells in the first place, and that's dangerous. So they need to combine in a separate cavity of the stomach so they can do it safely. The third type of cell, or cells, are chief cells, which secrete pepsinogen, an inactive form of the pepsin enzyme. Now, what does pepsin do? It works in a positive feedback loop. It converts more pepsinogen to pepsin, and it converts polypeptide chains into smaller polypeptide chains, or simply amino acids. So, how does pepsinogen turn into pepsin? It reacts with HCl. Another thing is that gastric glands don't constantly produce gastric juice. Such a stimulating hormone that stimulates how much gastric juice or when gastric juice is produced is gastrin, which is triggered by your senses and your nervous system. Such as if you see a lot of food, like a buffet, let's just say there's a delicious pie on the table and you look at it and your brain thinks, wow, that's food. You smell it, your brain thinks, wow, this is food. Gastrin is produced, which is, in anticipation of you eating that food. So that way, when you actually eat the food, you'll have plenty of gastric juice in your stomach to digest it, because, it's a little bit more efficient. Although sometimes it's not, because maybe your puppy jumps on the table and eats that pie before you can get it. That sucks. Anyways, gastrin also makes you hungry, which involves hunger pangs, which kind of hurts. So every 20 seconds, your stomach contracts, or completely churns, mixing everything that's in it, which again ties back to what I said with the esophagus burn. So when food is fully digested, it becomes a nutrient-rich broth called chyme, and chyme is then sent downward through the pyloric sphincter to the small intestine or the duodenum part of the small intestine. So the small intestine is made up of the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Main purpose of the small intestine is to chemically digest and absorb nutrients into the bloodstream. There's three parts of the small intestine: the duodenum, the jejunum, and ileum. So the duodenum involves with digestion. The jejunum and the ileum involve absorption. This is really where that kind of change occurs. So the duodenum, I mean those three are in order. That's how they are. It's the first uh, section of your small intestine where chyme is squirted in from the stomach. So pancreatic juice from the pancreas neutralizes the acidity of chyme. The gallbladder stores bile from the liver until it is needed. It also concentrates the bile. Through hydrolysis, the small intestine turns polymers into simpler polymers and then into monomers by means of enzymes. I mean, I could go in specifically with chymodermata. Damn, I forget the term. But that digests proteins as well as pepsin. On the jejunum and ileum, there are villi, which contain, or villi contain epithelial cells, which are close to capillaries on the systemic loop, which carries blood from your heart to the rest of your body. And it's also close to lymph or lymphatic vessels or lymph fluid, which takes up fatty acids and glycerol, while the blood capillaries take up amino acids and sugars. Now, where does the lymph take fatty acids and glycerols? It takes them right back to the circulatory system, so it's not going anywhere else where they can be distributed to cells or broken up or all that good stuff. So the villi and microvilli themselves act as protection against bacteria from absorbing the nutrients as they have been digested. After the amino acids and sugars have gone to the capillary, they travel through the hepatic portal vein into the liver. It's a pretty important vein right there. Because of the strategic position of the liver, it can effectively regulate the levels in our bloodstream before the blood goes anywhere else. So let's just say you accidentally ingested some poison, like alcohol. It would kind of go through your small intestine, it would get absorbed, and then it would go to your liver, and your liver would say, like, whoa, hold up. That's not gonna go to our heart, that might burn it. And it would say, we're gonna take that and we're gonna puke it out or whatever, and you're gonna get hangover. So, yes, that's bad. But good, because you didn't, like, die. Or you are still being alive. Now let's talk about the large intestine and the anus. Now, a big point that my biology teacher made is that the anus is a part of the digestive system, while the, you know, bladder and whatever organ that you have past that is a part of the excretory system. The anus is not a part of the excretory system. It is the end of your alimentary canal or your digestive tract. Another thing is that technically your digestive tract or your alimentary canal is actually kind of the outside of your body. So some of those cells are considered, integumentary. Some, most, it's mainly involved in digestion, but just keep that in mind, because that's important, because you need immune defense there as well. The main purpose of the large intestine is to process what remains after it's been absorbed. I mean, after the essential nutrients have been absorbed. At the junction between the small intestine and the large intestine, therein lies the cecum, which is used for, digesting some of those very, very complex, uh, carbs and proteins and lipids that maybe a plant eater might eat, such as a koala bear. Koala bears have very long cacums because they need to digest bamboo and all of those very long and complex polymers. And humans have short cacums because we don't have as much, well, we don't eat that, long of polymers in our diet. Not as long as bamboo, at least. We don't eat grass. And along the cacum is also the appendix, which is important for such digestion. And if it bursts, it would be pretty bad because, like I mentioned just now, you need some immune defense because, the innards of your alimentary canal are considered kind of the outside of your body. So you'd be letting a bacteria kind of inside your body, which is your first line of defense. It's been broken. That's where you need some inflammatory response, neutrophils, macrophages. It's more specific response after that, and you kind of need to get your appendix taken out or whatever. The main portion of our large intestine is the colon. The major function of the colon is to reabsorb water and also to promote the growth of bacteria that produce vitamin K, because that's most of where we get our vitamin K. Then, after we've absorbed 90% of our water back, and you know, the bile has already been gone through, and we don't need that bile, it's kind of gross and disgusting. We don't need to reabsorb that into our blood flow. All that stuff and all that waste material becomes feces, which is plural. Ficus. Anyways, it may take an entire day for feces to move through the length of your colon, where prokaryotes feast on the indigestible plant fibers, and those prokaryotes produce important vitamins, such as vitamin K, like I just mentioned. So then, the final portion of your this journey that we've been going on through is elimination through your rectum or your anus. Anus is really just the other part end of your rectum. Um, well, yeah, I mean, just that much more I could say about that. That's how your poop is made. So now let's talk a little bit about some nutrition here. So vitamins are organic nutrients where minerals are not inorganic nutrients. Sorry. Uh, Examples of vitamins are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. These are non-water soluble vitamins, otherwise known as fat soluble vitamins or lipid soluble vitamins because they're made of lipids. These are only four. There are many, many, many vitamins. Vitamin A can be found in vegetables, fruits, dairy products such as carrots or spinach or milk. Vitamin A aids your eyesight, but too much can cause a color of your skin or cause liver damage. Your liver is really important. You don't want to lose that. It's your strategic advantage for cleaning out your nutrients that come from your digestive system. So vitamin E is found in leafy vegetables, seeds, nuts, and wheat. Vitamin E is an antioxidant which helps prevent damage to cell membranes. Vitamin D can be found in egg yolk and in sunlight. That's why you need to take your shirt off when you run, also to show off your hot core and six pack. Definitely. Uh, which vitamin D also aids in bone formation, and too little causes weak bones. That's bad. You don't want to break a bone because you're not eating enough vitamin D. You need to drink your milk. Vitamin K is also found in green vegetables, but can be made by your colon bacteria and is in teas, like I mentioned before. Vitamin K is important in blood clotting, and too much of it can cause liver damage. Just about too much of anything can cause liver damage. So you want to make sure that you get a good balanced diet and you don't eat just like 20 pills a day. You don't want to be doing that. That'll kill you, of course. Yeah, that's the interesting fat soluble ones. So now let's talk about some water soluble vitamins. Vitamin C deficiency causes scurvy, which is pretty bad for pirates and stuff. Arg. Vitamin B2 is found in many products, and a deficiency of B2 causes photophobia and skin cracks, which basically means that you will probably not be very, you'll be a vampire. Vitamin B7 helps support bacteria living in our intestines. Now, I would really like to stress the undiscovered and secret world of your biome in intestines and all that good stuff. It is very important that you keep good bacteria that produce good nutrients and keep your, stuff regulated in your colon and your intestines. That's very important. They've done studies that you can reduce heart attack risk by ridiculous amounts by just changing your diets in just 2 weeks. It's crazy because it's really important. Now let's talk about vitamin B3, which is found in nuts, grains, and meat, not really in vegetables. High doses of vitamin B3 reduce cholesterol levels, because cholesterol, as we'll talk about in the next section, is not necessarily bad. So a mineral is a simple and organic nutrient, and also in small requirements. There are a handful of important minerals as well. So there's potassium, magnesium, iron, iodine, calcium, and sodium. Potassium can be found in meats, dairy products, and also grain. Potassium is important for bone and tooth formation. Anyways, calcium can be found in dairy products or legumes, and legumes are plants that rely on some bacteria to produce their nitrogen. That's just what they are. Calcium is required for bone and tooth formation. Let's talk about sodium. Sodium is a pretty interesting one. Sodium can be found in table salt, NaCl, sodium chloride, and sodium. Now, how is it used for proper water balance? Well, this is a little bit more complex thing to talk about, a little bit more of a connection issue, and it involves tonicity. Now, we're talking about hypertonicity and hypotonicity. So, we're talking about hypertonicity. That means that something has a high concentration. If we're talking about hypotonicity, that means something has a low concentration of an ion or substance or molecule or whatever. Areas of high concentration want to go to areas of low concentration. So, water is a non-polar molecule and it can be kind of hard to move it around. So, instead, what we do is we use selectively permeable membranes and then put a lot of one ion on one side or multiple ions on one side. So that way, the ratio of or percentage or whatever kind of comparison you want to make between the water and the ions is low. And so, maybe areas of high concentration, and the loop of Henle or collecting duct, where, water's kind of passing through as it's about to get excreted, because we don't need that water. Maybe the body says, no, let's retain some water. So instead, on our distal convoluted tubule, let's put some ions back into the bloodstream. Let's force some water back into the bloodstream, and then that'll work itself out. And the water kind of follows those ions because it wants to go from areas of high concentration to low concentration. Iron can be found in meats, eggs, legumes, and other vegetables. Iron is a component of hemoglobin. Red blood cells, the red color. Uh, Hemoglobin is used to carry O2. So, too little iron causes anemia and weakness of the immune system because, well, it's kind of hard to explain that. I'll leave that for another video. Iodine is another one that is pretty complex. Iodine can be found in seafood or iodized salts. Iodine is an important component of thyroid hormones. When we're talking about thyroid hormones, we have T3 and T4. T4 is thyroxine, T3 is triiodothyronine, but they require iodine to make them because T3 requires 3 iodine molecules and T4 requires 4 iodine molecules. And iodine molecules are pretty big. They weigh a lot. They have a lot of atomic mass units, man. Man, Also have a pretty big molar mass as well. A low amount of thyroxine can also cause your anterior pituitary gland to increase levels of thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, which increases the thyroid gland's metabolism and biochemical processes, causing it to grow. That's one way that we can get this goiter, which is bad. Others have other ways of doing it, whether it's some mess up of the homeostasis of the thyroid, or it gets weird, but that's a little bit more complex. Now let's talk about cholesterol. It gets a bad rap, but it's not so much how much cholesterol you eat. It's a little bit more to do with the cholesterol regulating molecules that you have in your bloodstream. The two that I'm going to talk about, at least, are cholesterol regulating molecules, low density lipoproteins, and high density lipoproteins. Low density lipoproteins are called LDLs. High density lipoproteins are called HDLs. HDLs are the good kind of cholesterol regulating molecule, as it transports excess cholesterol to the liver where it can be broken down. LDLs are considered the bad kind of cholesterol because it causes heart attacks, high blood pressure, and blockage in the vessels, and all that bad stuff that we all hear about, that you have too high cholesterol. Man, you should stop eating cholesterol. But no, that's not really the case. You just need to make sure that you have a good balance of HDLs and LDLs. It doesn't matter as much as how much cholesterol you eat. You just want to make sure you have a good balance. Now, I would be bad if I just said left it at that and ended this video, but no, let's talk a little bit about numbers. So my father, he has in probably the borderline acceptable HDL LDL ratio, which is about 40 to 110. So if he had any less HDLs, then that would be very bad. If he had any more LDLs, that would be pretty bad too. So what you want is you want as much HDL as possible and you want as little LDL as possible. Probably within the ratio of 1 to 3. That's probably pretty good. So that is that for this nutrition. Thank you for watching. That is the end. Now I want to mention these wonderful people. I'll say their names: Jane B. Reese, Taylor R. Martha, Simon J. Eric, Dickie L. John, and Hogan Kelly. They are some of the authors for the Biology Concepts and Connections 8th edition, made by Pearson's Education Incorporated, 2015. I used this book a lot to make this video, and I feel like I very much need to source it for most of my video. And I also used some Google Images, which were those images, because technically Google Images is a secondary source, so I don't need to cite every single website that I got an image from. Also, it's not a huge deal, because it's rather public information, so, you know, it's not like I need a artwork, copyright, or anything like that I have to worry about. But thank you very much for watching.